does your marketing manager go with you in the RV?
Yeah, yeah, so when I left California, I was in California doing the business, and then she was a client of mine, and she said that she has a marketing degree. So when she got done, she started helping me with a couple of things. And then I said, well, I'm going to be traveling in an RV across the country. She's like, oh my God, that sounds like fun. And I'm like, want to come with me? And she's like, yeah. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, I'll come to and I'll pick you up, and then we'll go travel. And now we're on tour. I'm on tour with Kirsten Dunn, who's going around from state to state to make an impact in each state, which is getting 12 businesses together to say, hey, how can we make an impact in the community and in the city that you live in and make that difference. So she's finding businesses that can go around and make a difference. And then she's calling it the We Can't Wait Tour. And then we're basically making an impact and showing people how we can change lives with it. So
that's really cool.
It's really fun. So we're traveling in an RV and following the journey there.
That's awesome. So, that's way cool.
Yeah.
So have you named your RV?
Have I named my RV? I did not, but I'd asked one of my clients is actually a psychic, and she said that my RV name was Peppermint, and I was like, okay, that sounds cool. So she told me what the name was, and I was like, okay, that sounds good.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah. I've told my kids I wanted to name a dog Waffles, and they won't let me name a dog Waffles. And I'm like, then I'm going to get an RV and I'm going to name it Waffles.
Actually, one of my clients, she does psychic readings or medium work with pets, with animals.
Oh, really?
She could tell you what your pet name would be or what the pet wants to be named.
That's interesting. I didn't know that was a thing. Huh.
I didn't either, but some of my other clients have gone to her because I don't have any pets, but some of my other clients have gone to her and they were like, wow, she's spot on. And then they're afraid to have their pet go there because they're like, the pet's going to tell on me. Funny, but yeah, she's great. She's awesome.
Oh, that's way cool. All right. So I do have a couple questions for you. So I know I met you through Beata's Facebook Live.
Yes.
And I met Beata through John Tallarico's course and Les Brown's course.
Okay.
I'm assuming you're somewhere involved with something like that with John or Les or Dolly or...
Yep, I know John Tallarico. I've worked with him, and then Les Brown is part of the We Can't Wait tour. So I'm going to be working with Les Brown as well. And then Dolly Cena and I actually went to training together with the Bob Proctor program last year. We met up, or maybe it was it was last year. And her and I connected, and we roomed together, and we've been great friends ever since. And she was fascinated with the handwriting, so then she shared with many people. And then John Tallarico ended up, he has a testimonial on my Facebook page that he enjoyed the handwriting program.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing the handwriting program?
So I started learning about handwriting I've been studying it for 9 years. I've been doing I created the course and everything the beginning of this year. So I've been doing it because with COVID and everything, I was like, well, let's make a business out of this because it changes lives. And I've been studying it and sharing it passionately for 8 years. And I know the difference that it makes, but I didn't make a career out of it until I was like, you know what? I know the difference that this makes, so I have to step up and make a career out of it so that I can impact more people's lives. But I started my journey started when I actually got married in 2005. I was married to a great guy. It just didn't work out. But I went from Misty Cogdill to Misty Cook. And I was Misty Cook for 6 years. And it took about a year for me to recognize that something was definitely different. And I didn't understand why. I didn't know. And everybody was like, you've changed. And I'm like, I know, but I have no idea why. Like, what happened? You know, like nobody gave me a rule book and said, this is the way marriage is going to go. You're going to change and you might not like it. So it was kind of like a slow leak in a bag, you know, it was just like drip, drip, drip. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, the bag's empty. Well, that's kind of how it went as I, you know, changed my signature. I went from Misty Cogdill to Misty Cook, and then I was experiencing life differently. And then about a year, I was like, man, I'm like, what happened? Like, there's certain parts of me that just went missing. You know, like I was a very extrovert, happy, you know, bubbly, love life, love to connect with people. It was all about, you know, like, hey, let's talk, you know, and loved people, to very introvert and kind of withdrew from people and just kind of analyzed everything. And I was like, man, I'm experiencing life very different than the way I was before. And I'm like, what caused that change?
Right.
And I went through, so after I'd gotten divorced and got my maiden name back, and started putting the pieces of the puzzle together because I got my old personality back. And then I was like, I'm my old self again. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I got to make sure that I go back and figure this out so that I don't do whatever happened, that I don't do that again, because I liked who I was and I didn't like the change that happened. So I was like on, you know, like, this is life or death matter. Like, I got to figure this out. And when I figured it out, I put the pieces of the puzzle together and realized that it was the signature. So then I went around asking all kinds of women, you know, I was like, hey, I'm like, did you change after you got married? And then did you change? And did you change? And you know, I was asking all kinds of women for the last 8 years, and everybody says yes. But they're like, I thought it was because of the baby, or I thought it was because of the move, or I thought it was because of the job change. You know, like, life just happens and things change, and then you just deal with the change. And I was like, no, we got to go a little bit deeper. There's something more to it than just the job change or just the baby, or just, you know, like, the baby comes and life's forever different, right? So then they just assume that it's the baby. And when I didn't have that experience, I didn't have a baby, you know, and I did have a job change, but I was like, you know, there's still more to it. So then when I actually figured out what was handwriting and connected the dots of, hey, my last name changed, your handwriting is a graphic representation of your thought patterns. It shifts the neurological patterns in your brain and causes you to think different, which causes a different personality to come for you to experience life differently through your personality shift. So then I was like, oh my gosh, like, every woman out there is experiencing this and they don't know why. You know, they probably haven't linked it together, because I was an only child, so I knew myself really well, you know, and it's just me recognizing those concepts and putting those pieces together. I'm like, I need to go out there and tell, like, everybody about this. And so that's what I've been doing, and that's what I decided to make a business out of it and start coaching and sharing the story and traveling in an RV. I'm like, how many people can I reach? How many people can I talk to and connect with, and, you know, make that difference for people? Because it for women, we change our last name and we don't know the consequences, or that our handwriting is a graphic representation of our thought patterns. You know, nobody ever shared that, but my mom always wanted to change her handwriting my whole life. And I was always like, why? That ain't no big deal. And then when I started studying the science behind it all, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a big deal. And I was like, wow, like, I had no idea. And so it is definitely a lot of science and research behind it.
So when you say that you studied handwriting, did you go to, like, college? Did you do, like, the police stuff that they do as far as handwriting investigation?
So no, I didn't study with the police, but I did study International Institute of Handwriting Studies. I had studied there for several years and studied and worked with, you know, a lot of teachers, as well as read a lot of books and kind of put concepts together. And there was a study that was done on the most beneficial way to write each letter that links back to, you know, your most noble thought leaders of all time. They all had handwriting, and you get samples of their handwriting, you know, like Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Abraham Lincoln, Albert Einstein, you know, Nikola Tesla, Andrew Carnegie, you know, and you start doing research and you see the common denominators with how they thought on paper. Not all of them wrote perfectly, you know, or in the most beneficial way, but they all left behind clues, you know, and then you start studying and then you do your own research, because truth lives in experience, you know, and then you test it out and you write a letter this way and then you feel the energy of it and you feel what that's like. Then you can write it a different way for a while and then you feel what that shift is like. And then you start doing your own, you know, research of like, okay, this is like this and this is like this, you know, this one feels better, you know, and there's egoic patterns. The way we were taught in grade school was all limiting. It's actually designed to hold us back and for our mindset to actually have more challenges in life. And the way I've been teaching with people is the most beneficial way to write, that's going to kind of on a soul level, it's going to advance you and bring your soul to its full potential.
That's really cool.
Oh, yeah, it's been super fascinating.
So with your course that you started this year, has it done well for you?
Yeah, I have over 20 clients and I've got tons of success stories, and I've got, for the last 8 years, I've got, you know, tons of success stories with different people that I worked with more as a hobby, you know, but I've got people who they tried to sell their house for 5 years and couldn't get out of their own way, and everything in the world would come up. And then and then I saw their signature and I was like, well, I said, you've got a huge self-sabotage in your signature. And so that individual changed it, and within 3 months she had sold her house, and she's like, oh my gosh, it's a miracle. And I said, well, you just got out of your own way because you removed the limits in your signature that were blocking you, and it typically takes 3 months for the neurological patterns in your brain to shift and to allow you to propel forward, and then, you know, you're not blocking yourself in that way anymore.
Wow. It's just, to me, this is fascinating. It's so fascinating. And I had seen, like, here in Utah, and maybe it was you, I don't know, but there was some handwriting expert here local within the last 6 months. And I was like, I really want to see this handwriting thing. And then all of a sudden Beata was interviewing you, and I was like, I'm going to watch what she does. And so that was really cool.
Yeah, where was it in Utah, that the handwriting, because I was in Utah in July, the beginning of July.
You know, I can't say that I know. It was more online that I saw.
Oh, okay.
Somebody did some kind of handwriting expo or something. I don't really remember.
Okay.
I just remember that I had a desire to learn more.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, some people, you know, they sit back and then because I used to think the same thing. My mom wanted to change her handwriting all the time, and I always blew it off. You know, I was like, oh, that's no big deal. And then when I started studying the science behind it, I was like, your handwriting is a map on paper of how you think. And you know, and then I started thinking back to when I was younger. I used to go around and tell everybody, I'm like, can't we just open up the brain, wire it properly, close the brain back, call it good? Like that was my solution in life, you know. And I was like, why can't we just do that? And then that fixes everybody's problems, and we can all just be happy and live in utopia.
You know, that would have been awesome if we could.
Yeah. So, but now, you know, that concept is like, that's actually what the pen is doing, is you know, the way you write is showing me on paper the way the neurological patterns are mapped out right now. So it's like, if you want to wire it properly, then you can write in a certain way to literally get the neurological patterns to form in that way. And then it's like a stencil for your thinking. And so it's like if you dig ditches for water, you know, you dig a bunch of ditches for the water to flow and kind of guide where the extra rain's going to go, right?
Right.
So you have a stencil for your thinking, it's going to kind of form in a certain way and go in a certain direction to lead you to your most noble thought patterns possible. And we're all on different scales, right? Some of us started 50 miles behind the line. Some of us started 25 miles ahead. We're all at different areas, but if we can all start growing in that certain direction and in that way that allows somebody to, you know, kind of be able to start thinking in the most beneficial way, you're going to learn whatever lessons you need to learn to then be able to advance and then start growing and thinking like those great thought leaders of all time. So it's a kind of a soul development type mentality that happens with the handwriting that advances not only your human, but your soul too, to your true potential of what you were born to do.
That's just, wow. Like, wow. Well, it's just, like, so it's such a concept because I get what you're saying, especially being married and changing my name. And that was really hard to do, but I never realized why. And then when, like right now, then I got divorced and I'm in the process of change, and I kept my married name until my kids got out of school. And I'm in the process of going back to my maiden name. And so It's been really, like, it's just a weird thought process and pattern and whatnot. Yeah.
What was your, so is White your married name or was that your maiden name?
White is my maiden name.
Okay. Yeah. So the W is the letter of the teacher and the mentor.
Oh, wow.
So every letter carries a specific pattern with it. And with the energy and the pattern with it, you're working with certain energies and certain traits, characteristic traits that are going to show up from that. So every single letter represents some sort of pattern, and I've got it all memorized. So the K, for example, the first letter of our first name is our biggest challenge in life, and the first letter of our last name is our life path. So for example, with me, with my name being Misty, the M is my biggest challenge in life. And once I overcome that biggest challenge, it becomes my greatest gift to humanity. And that's with everybody. Every single person out there with their first name, once they work through what they took on from their parents, because our parents name us, you know, we kind of take on their stuff. And then we work through it, and writing the letters in the most beneficial way helps you work through it faster, you know, so that you can get through it faster. And everybody took on different stuff. So some people might work through their patterns a lot quicker than others. But again, the handwriting kind of helps you. But the K is all about leadership. So you are actually born to be a leader, and you're born to also be a teacher because the W is the letter of the mentor. And it's you being a mentor and teaching and sharing what you know to be true and what you've learned, and then sharing that with others. You're like, hey, did you know this? Blah, you know, blah, 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 whatever it may be. But with the K, it's you know when to lead and you know when to follow. So you kind of have a sixth sense, or like a, I always think of it like a deer. You know, when a deer goes into a forest and they're sensing, like, is there a hunter in here? And they sense the hunter and they're gone. You kind of have that sort of a sense where it's like, you know when to lead and you know when to, you know, like who to lead and who to follow. Somebody's giving you a bunch of BS or whatever, you're going to be able to sense it and pick up on it. And then you're going to say, nope, I'm not going to go in this direction. I'm going to go in this direction. And then if somebody's like, you know, they're strong, they're educating, they're teaching you, you know, and you can feel it, you know, you're able to sense it, and you're like, okay, then let's go in this direction. So you have that ability with the first letter of your first name is the pattern that you work with. It becomes your greatest gift once you master it.
Yeah, that's really interesting, especially because taking, so John's course is the Thinking into Results for Bob Proctor.
Yeah, I'm one of the consultants for that training.
Oh, really? Oh, see, that's really cool. And so right now, that's where I know that one of my biggest challenges is public speaking. And
Okay.
I know that I love to lead people.
Yep.
I love to lead people one-on-one.
Yeah.
And so I've not been trying. I'm getting over it. And John's helping, Les's course is helping.
Yeah, John is fabulous. I can't say enough good things about him. He will, and he really comes from his heart, you know, and he's going to lead you in a way that's like, hey, I'm giving you this advice and it's for the greater good. It's for your best interest. You know, he's really committed to your greatness and having you have a win-win situation. He's given me a lot of great advice, as well as I was able to share, you know, about the handwriting, but the advice that he gave me was phenomenal. It's a lot of great advice on many levels with a lot of different things. He's very well educated in a lot of areas.
Right? No, I totally agree.
Yeah.
So I do have a question. When I was younger, because we learned cursive and whatnot when I was younger,
Mm-hmm.
my son, on the other hand, did not learn cursive, so he cannot read cursive. But that's not my question. When I was writing, I have a tendency to, like, I'll go into print and then cursive and then print again.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mom, she wanted me, and she actually made me do this. She made me write 3 pages of just O's and connect all the O's together. And I could never, and I did it for her benefit. But after that, I still can't connect my words together. Can you explain that a little bit?
So the O is all about kind of sensitive truth telling and knowledge. So when my name went from Misty Cogdill to Misty Cook, I had 2 O's in my name. As I shifted it, in which I had an O before, but bringing 2 of them in, I was gathering all kinds of knowledge and information and wisdom, and it was like an addiction. All of a sudden, I was like, I couldn't get enough. Like I was hungry for knowing more. And if you look at Bob Proctor, he's got 3 O's in his name, you know, and you just look at people who have a lot of O's in their name, they're, you know, constantly attracting more and more wisdom to themselves. So I would say it was, you know, based on your experience with the O's, did she have you write them clockwise or counterclockwise?
So counterclockwise.
Okay. Yeah, so you could write them clockwise and it's going to give you a different energy and a different experience. But it's going to be how your speaking shows up. So the example I can give is I did real estate for 8 years, and I was always talking to my clients, and because I did new construction, so we were always building the new homes, and I would talk with my clients, and I used to always say, "Oh, this is cheaper. This is da 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 da, cheaper, 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 cheaper." I always use the word cheap for whatever was, you know, something that was not as expensive, right? And then I started writing my forward O's, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, well, this is more affordable. And then all of a sudden I was like, my language is changing. I'm not saying cheaper anymore. Now I'm saying more affordable. And I'm like, that sounds so much better. I'm like, I like the way that I say that. So I really like that shift. But there's no wrong or right way. It's just making sure that there's no loops inside that O at all, because it can cause deceit and you know, lying, or somebody not telling the full truth if there's any loops inside. So there's a lot to it, but definitely if you're connecting all of them, you know, you definitely want to disconnect after 5 letters.
And can you explain that? I heard you say that on Beata's interview, but could you explain why you're saying that?
Because if you connect more than 5 letters, you tend to hold on to the past. And if like you've got resentments or something like that, you're not letting it go. Sometimes you just need to let things go and move on. And sometimes you can start to like hold on to the past and like not let it go. So it's a lot healthier to disconnect. And then it's healthy to connect because you're able to, you know, be and connect with people and experience the emotions and go through those feelings. because you want to be like a clear pipe, you know, you want to be able to flow and not have anything clogged in the pipe, right? You know, so when you're writing the letters, you're going through all those emotions, it's healthy, it's good. But if you're connecting like the word communication and you connect all of them, you're like, that's a lot of, you know, connecting. You could tend to hold on to past experiences and not want to let them go.
So interesting. So interesting.
Yeah.
And what about the size of print or cursive or whatever you decide your print you're using for your handwriting?
Yeah, so if it's tiny writing and it's small, it's more intellectual. And then if it's big and bubbly, then it's more heartfelt energy. So it depends on, you know, when you're looking at someone's handwriting, the size of it can tell you the energy that they're coming from.
It's I can't write like really large bubbly letters. So mine are like right in between. So does that mean I'm half bubbly and half intellectual?
My handwriting's kind of in the middle too, but it used to be really big and really bubbly. And then my mom's was always really tiny and really pointy. And I was always like, you know, handwriting's handwriting. And then she always wanted to change hers. And now I'm like, oh, now I know why. Because she was wanting to kind of experience the other end. And then sometimes I'll try and write really tiny. But if I'm not present, then all of a sudden it goes back to more medium. Yeah. So it kind of depends. I would say medium to large is kind of more still expression from the heart, but when it's tiny, then it's intellectual. You're able to process information, and there's not one that's bad or wrong or good or anything. It's just a matter of your experience and how you're experiencing life. You know, do you want to experience it differently? But yeah, having more of the intellectual, you might process faster, you might take things in and bam, you got answers, where somebody else might have to sit there and process it a little bit more. So just a different experience, that's all.
Interesting. So have you found, like, because we're all electronic and we all type a lot now and not necessarily write stuff anymore, how has that changed your business at all? Or
So I always tell everybody, you know, you go to the gym all the time to work out, right? And you're willing to go to the gym to exercise, get on the treadmill, lift weights, you know, do sit-ups, whatever. You take care of your body. Well, you got to take care of your mind too. And when you go to write, you're going to the gym for your brain.
That's a great way to put it. Great way.
That's the analogy that I've come up with for people. They're like, I type everything now. I said, there's nothing wrong with getting up an hour early and doing your handwriting.
Yeah. So, well, and that's part of my issue is my hand hurts a lot just from the carpal tunnel, all of that stuff from working so many years. Mm-hmm. But now that I'm journaling every day, I'm like, it actually is, it's really comforting, and I think it helps a lot. It helps a lot of healing.
Mm-hmm. It does. It does. I always say, you know, definitely process and write down all your feelings, and to journal, just to journal in general is good. But then what I teach is for you to the specific shape of each letter is very, very important. And I always talk about golfing. You know, if you hit the golf ball and it goes in a certain direction, you shift your golf swing just a little bit, it makes a world of difference where that ball lands. Well, when you shift your handwriting just a little bit, it makes a world of difference in your thinking and how that thinking shows up in life.
That's so crazy that it's actually so true what you're saying. Saying. So I had a question. Oh, so my daughter's handwriting, her signature is exactly like mine. I think it's because she forged my signature so many times in high school. I'm going to just say that right now. And I learned that later. And so is that a common thing that you find that kids have the same handwriting as their parents?
A lot of the times, yes, because our parents, we take on this stuff from our parents. So with my mom naming me Misty, you know, I took on the energy that she had, and she kind of became the example of the letter M. So the capital letter works with the mindset, and then the lowercase letters in the rest of your name work with your everyday activities. So with the M, it's all about letting go of control and allowing divine grace to work through you. So my mom became that example. She had always said my entire life, let go and let God, let go and let God. Like it was like a broken record, let go and let God. I'm like, yeah, I know. Well, it was a matter of letting go of control. You know, I took on her control issues, and then I was always trying to micromanage everything and not necessarily being in the flow of stuff. And then once I started to work through those patterns, it became a lot easier. And then I was just like, you know, more easygoing and not trying to maybe control conversations or trying to, whatever the case may be, trying to control a situation and make it go in a certain way. You know, like I'd had an intuitive message, you know, come through that it was like I shouldn't have gotten married, but I was like, I can make it work. Watch this. You know? you try to control the situation. Yeah. You're like, I can make it work. Well, no, sometimes you just need to let things be the way that they're meant to be and stop trying to control it. So it's becoming the greatest gift, which is letting go of control and just allowing yourself to be guided and go with the flow instead of trying to, you know, force an outcome.
Interesting. One of the other things, we're at our time, so tell me if you have a little bit more time or not.
Yeah, I've got a little bit more time.
Okay. One of the things you said on Beata's interview is a certain type of handwriting is to protect your heart. And can you explain that?
Yeah, so military men and women are forced to write in all capital letters. And sometimes people that are in the medical field, or if they're like an EMT or they're a firefighter or whatever, they're forced to write in all capital letters and to print. And what happens is it kind of builds walls up around your heart, and it keeps everybody at arm's length. So never really allowing them to get close. So when you do that, you're kind of more of a stronger type of personality that's going to kind of come across, maybe not necessarily cold-hearted, but what happens is when military men and women have to go overseas, if they're not as connected to their heart, then they can do the job that they need to do, which is sometimes they may have to, you know, kill somebody or shoot a gun and towards somebody and have a certain outcome. Well, if you're connected to your heart and you're super sensitive, you're probably going to have a hard time pulling that trigger. But when you're writing in all capital letters, it has you build that wall up and makes you tough and makes you a lot stronger to be able to disconnect and do that. But what happens is they come back from the war or whatever experience has happened, and then all of a sudden they've got PTSD and it's staying stuck because they're not going through the emotions that they need to go through to release and to heal from that experience. And then that's where I actually am trying to work with a group, or I am getting ready to work with a group in Florida for all the vets to change their handwriting and stop writing in all capital letters so that they can process those emotions that got stuck of whatever it is that they experienced, so they can heal it, let it go, and move on. So if you're writing in capital letters, a lot of the times between the ages of 11 to 13, something might happen that's negative, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to start writing in all capital letters. And it's not something that you consciously necessarily do, but you're just committed to, I'm never going to be hurt again. So then you push everybody away, and then you start writing in capital letters to keep everybody at a distance and not allow anybody to really get close.
No, that's just boggles my brain, because my son, he's 19 right now, and he went through some issues over the last 5 years, and he writes in all capital letters. And I was like, Lawson, you're protecting your heart. I'm like, I learned that the other day. And
yeah, well, it's if somebody's in a traumatic experience, you know, it can certainly maybe support them, but it's not going to help them heal the emotions that they're going through that then get stuck and trapped inside. So it can actually sometimes cause damage as time goes on to not allow yourself to process what's there, to then work through it, heal it, move on, and let it go.
Oh. So if you have, like, for example, for Lawson, and I understand why because of the hurt he had gone through and the fact that he's writing in all capital letters, what would you recommend for him to do? Like, change his handwriting?
Yeah, so the course that I have, and there's different things that you can do to go through the emotions, but a lot of the times when you shift your handwriting and you start writing in a certain way, which is not in capital letters, you're able to connect more with people, and then you can have deeper, more fulfilling relationships, which doesn't cause you to maybe feel so isolated. Because some people can start to feel like they can't connect with people because they don't know that writing in capital letters is going to keep you disconnected.
Got you.
So it can cause issues later on. I mean, there's people that have written in capital letters their whole life. That's the way they experience life. But then maybe they don't have those deeper connections, or they don't have that ability to, there's a block that gets formed, and especially if a parent writes in all capital letters, then maybe their child is working through those issues, and then they can't maybe connect with men, and then the daughter maybe can't connect with the guy because the dad writes in all capital letters, because it's like, it's all interconnected and it's all part of it. And when you really start to look at the family, it doesn't necessarily support the family connection that can be there. So there's a lot to it, and it really is an individual, basis. You kind of look at, well, what is their name? How are they writing it? Who's in the family? What's the issues? And you can kind of see and start putting the pieces of the puzzle together.
Awesome.
I know several, 3 different fathers who write in all capital letters, and all of their daughters are having a hard time connecting with men in general. They are finding that their connection isn't, they don't understand what the connection issue is. And then I'm like, does your dad write in all capital letters? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, okay. So I'm starting to see a theme and a common denominator, that the gentlemen who write in all capital letters are not serving their daughters very well when it comes to, and I'm not saying that's the case for everybody, but it certainly can cause certain issues that might not be there otherwise.
So very interesting. This is like so fascinating to me. So, but I know we're at the end of our time, and I can see you're getting a little antsy. So, so I do have two. So I wanted you to tell me how, not me, whoever listens to this, how to get in touch with you, and then I have one last question.
Yes, great question. So you can go on to my website. It's www.handwritingsoulacademy. Soul is spelled S-O-U-L. So it's handwritingsoulacademy.com. I also have my email address is misty@handwritingsoulacademy.com. And then you can also, we've got a public Facebook group where I'm posting all of my interviews and all different kinds of just little tips and stuff that I've been sharing with other people as we've been learning and growing. I post that in the Facebook group, as well as I have a YouTube channel, Handwriting Soul Academy, on the YouTube channel as well. So a lot of my interviews are there too.
Okay, awesome. So when I post this, I'll tag everything that you just said.
Okay.
That would be awesome. Okay, my last and final question, because you're very fascinating to me, and what you do is very fascinating. So sometime when you come to Utah, I'll probably have you come to my actual, I have a job, have you do some courses for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that would be really fun. So my final question is, if you could tell your 18-year-old self anything, what would you tell her and why?
If I could tell my 18-year-old self anything, I would say just enjoy the journey. There's going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be You know, you're going to have your ups and your downs, and you're going to get your heart broken, and, you know, things are going to happen, but it's going to cause you to grow and learn in ways that are invaluable and priceless. And the experience, everyone's like, you know, because I got divorced, you know, I got married, I got divorced. Would you do it over? I wouldn't change anything, because if you would have told me about handwriting before, I would have been like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. That's a cool concept. And I might have studied it a little bit and then went on and did, you know, something else. But because I had the personal experience of actually feeling different, and I didn't find the answers for over 5 years, and feeling the way that I was feeling, having a different experience of life, that lesson was priceless and invaluable, that lit me up like a Christmas tree with passion and excitement, that I'm like, I need to go out there and share this with everybody about handwriting. So honestly, he was my greatest teacher. You know, even though, I mean, he was a great guy, it didn't work out, but he was my greatest teacher in life. He's been my greatest teacher because of that. And I learned so much there that has carried me on for the rest of my life, that I wouldn't change anything. So if I was to tell my 18-year-old self anything, it's just look in the mirror and say, I love you. It's going to be a wild ride, but we got your back.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, what cool. Thank you, Misty. I appreciate your time tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. It was an honor to be on your show.
Of course, of course. Enjoy Dallas and enjoy your tour. I'm going to follow you and see what you're doing. So I'm going to be, I guess I'll be, I don't know what it's called if I'm not like a roadie, like a virtual roadie. So.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, we're doing all kinds of things. So we'll keep posting on social media, and always happy to see the comments and the likes and whatnot, and happy to share.
Awesome. So thanks so much, Misty.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thanks, you too.